In this video, I'll show you the best Aseprite to Unreal Engine workflow, which allows you to directly import Aseprite files into Unreal, auto-generate flipbooks, instantly apply updates with a single command, and even how you can use multi-layered sprites with this workflow. As a bonus, in the end, I'll also show you how we can achieve the same thing using Pixquare on an iPad with instant updates to Unreal on your Windows PC. Now, as a disclaimer, you might have seen my other videos about the JSON import method, and that one is still great, but the Aseprite method allows us to cut down the amount of steps we have to take and streamlines things. However, it relies on a paid but cheap plugin from the Fab Marketplace, which I'll talk about more later. So if you want something that is completely free, the JSON method is still your best bet. But let's now get started with the Aseprite method. Now here in Aseprite I have a character that I drew, but of course this could be anything. The most important thing is though that we have these tags here, so I have a tag for every direction for the idle animation and a tag for every direction of the run animation. And if you don't know, you can just select frames, you can right click and create a new tag like this. And that's what I did for all of these. And this will just determine which flipbooks are then created inside of Unreal Engine. Now again, with the JSON method, I would go to File, I would go to Export, Export Sprite Sheet, and set all of these things up here. And this is not a bad method, but with the method I'm going to show you now, we don't have to do that, and I can just drag the actual Aseprite file into Unreal Engine. So we have one consistent source of truth, and we can keep on making updates to the file and Unreal Engine as we go. However, the next thing we need is the Aseprite plugin from Fab, and there are multiple ones available, but the one that I'm using is the one by ENFP Dev Studio. And the developer is great, listening to some of my feedback for feature requests, and he also did bug fixes the same day I told him that I found an issue. Now the plugin isn't completely free, it shows 800 yen, I think it's probably like $5 for you, but the time and energy you save by using this plugin will make up for that 100-fold, so I definitely recommend it. And once you add it to your library, you want to install the plugin for whatever Unreal Engine version you want to use it on. I already have it installed for 5.6, which I'm using in this video. Now open up the Unreal Engine project you want to use, go to Edit, Plugins, and then look for Aseprite. And we just want to turn on the Aseprite importer and restart now. Now the plugin pops up a window where we have to define where the Aseprite executable is because it uses the command line of Aseprite to import and update things. Just click on Browse, and where this is located depends on if you have the Steam version, if you compiled it yourself or whatever, but I think most people have the Steam version. So it is in Steam Library, Steam Apps Common, and then here we have Aseprite, and we just want to double click the Aseprite exe file. And then if this shows up in green, click OK. Now in Unreal, we just want to prepare a folder where you can drag the Aseprite file in, and you can literally just drag it in here, and this should then show a new pop-up here, and this gives us a couple of import options. We want to create the flipbooks, we want to skip empty frames, that is fine. We can actually set the frames per second setting here. For me, it is 7, and this very much depends on your sprite, and pixels per unit also depends on your project. If you follow my tutorials, it's mostly 0.25, which will make the sprites 4 times as big. In my case, the pivot is bottom center, and you can also pick the material you want to use. It could be the masked unlit or lit, and I actually have a custom one here, but this doesn't matter. Split layers we'll talk about later, and then I can just click on OK, and we have the nice Aseprite file here, and we have the flipbooks here already working. Now you might have to do some manual adjustments here because not every flipbook is always the same FPS setting, but this is a good starting point, and we already saved so much time over using the JSON method. Now I'm just going to drag out the sprite here so we can look at the changes. But what really is the best thing about this whole workflow is what I'm going to get into now, because directly importing the Aseprite file allows us to keep on making changes as we develop our game and instantly apply them to Unreal Engine. And by the way, the characters and the project files I'm using here for demonstration are from my JRPG Masterclass, which is a 37-hour-long course teaching you how to create an RPG with turn-based combat in Unreal Engine 5. This is by far the most comprehensive and well-received course I've ever created, and the first 10 people to use the specific discount link in the description of this video get 10% off, so make sure to check it out. So I could do something as simple as maybe changing the shading on the legs here a little bit, hitting Ctrl S to save, and then inside of Unreal I just have to go back here where I see the Aseprite file, I right-click and I click on Re-import, and now you can see the shading updated here. But just to show you a more obvious example, let me change the hair color. I'll just use the hue and saturation tool here and maybe give him turquoise hair. And then again, I just save. I go back in here and again, I just re-import. And now you can see the hair color is different and it just took a single command. But we can even go further than this because maybe we want to change the amount of frames that a single animation has. So let's just say for the idle down, I can just copy paste, create a new frame here, And I'm just gonna change the eyes to make it obvious. Again, I save, I re-import, and you can see now we have 3 frames for this animation. I can then even go back here, delete the 3rd frame, and if I re-import then, it is smart enough to delete the frame again, right? So you can see we're back to our 2 frames, but if I then go into the frames folder, you can see there's an empty frame here that it kept just so things don't break. So this plugin is very smart even if we delete frames or add them. And so far this plugin covered every edge case and need that I can think of, and I think it is a much better workflow than the JSON method. To quickly show you another advanced use case, here I have a file which has multiple layers. You can see the clothes, the hat, and the body of the character on different layers, and we can actually import in Aseprite files with these layers intact. I can just drag the file in here. Again, it's going to ask for settings here. In this case, I'll change them a little bit and make sure that split layers is selected. Now here you can see that every layer has their own flipbooks, which works perfectly together with the new layer system that PaperZD introduced recently. If I then create an animation source with this character and just give it these 2 additional layers here, I can then use the composite layers here for the hat and also for the clothes. And then I just gotta set the offset here. And you can see we're using these different layers inside the game engine just as they are in the Aseprite file. And this makes things very easy if you decide to have different characters, different bodies, different armor parts, and you can just dynamically update everything. Now the last thing I want to show you is how we can also use the same workflow with instant updates, but not from a PC with Asprites, but from an iPad using Pixquare, which is my preferred method to draw pixel art. The main reason is that I can just use the iPad on the train to draw, that I can just sit on the couch, watch some YouTube, and draw on the side. It just makes it much easier to turn it into a habit. And Pixquare is a great pixel art software that I've been using for a couple of years now. And by the way, you can get 30% off with my code COBRA when you get the full version of the app. Now, the first thing we need to make this work is the iCloud for Windows app that you can download from the Microsoft Store, and you then want to install it. I'm not going to walk you through this because it's self-explanatory, you can figure it out, and then you want to set it to sync automatically. You should then have this iCloud Drive folder, and I just created a folder called Pixel Art, and I dragged in this Aseprite file of the Viking, which I then want to use on the iPad. Now in Pixquare on the iPad, I want to click on the settings icon and switch from on-device storage to iCloud storage. And here I can then click on the plus icon, import, and then import files. And now I can access this folder with the field Viking Aseprite here. It's gonna ask if I want to import as an Aseprite file or a Pixquare file. And this was actually a feature request by me, which the developer was kind enough to implement, so thank you very much. And we want to pick Aseprite here. And here I then have the field version of the Viking with the different frames here. You can see it also has the tags and everything. But one thing that is very important to understand is that this is not the same file anymore. By doing this, it actually created a new file here in the Pixquare folder, artworks, and now here, this is the field Viking that it's using. So this is the one that we need to drag into Unreal Engine. So I'm just going to do that, drag it in here, use the appropriate settings again, and then click on OK. And here we again have the sprites for the Viking. I'm just going to drag it out here. And now I can just make changes on the iPad. Let me do something as drastic as just making the eyes red so we can see it easily. I can click on Save on the top left here. And then back in Unreal Engine, I can go back to the Viking, right click, and re-import. And you can see now the eyes are red. And in my opinion, this creates the best workflow by far because we have the same Aseprite file, one source of truth between the iPad, between Aseprite on the PC, and between Unreal Engine, and we can instantly affect changes from one to the other. And I hope this video helped you consider a new method of dealing with sprites to streamline your workflow. As always, a huge thanks to my awesome patrons and YouTube channel members.